a metal arm?
With everything going on in the MCU, sometimes there are stories we don't get to see. Bucky's past as the Winter Soldier and his recovery from HYDRA's brainwashing may have been glazed over in Infinity War, but we're finally going to shed some light on those mysteries. From Winter Soldier to White Wolf, we'll walk you through Bucky's transformation, including what Marvel didn't show you in the movies.
What the hell?
From Brooklyn to the battlefield, Bucky Barnes has always been by Steve Rogers' side.
I thought you were dead. I thought you were smaller.
So how did Cap's best friend end up working for HYDRA? It all began in World War II, when part of the 107 Infantry Regiment was taken prisoner by HYDRA. It was here that Arnim Zola subjected Barnes to experiments to recreate Erskine's super soldier serum. Cap finds Bucky strapped to a table, dazed and mumbling his name and serial number to himself, indicating that Zola may have already been trying to break his mind. Fortunately, he's quickly snapped out of this stupor when he's rescued. He's even able to recognize Steve despite all of the changes his skinny little buddy from Brooklyn went through. These experiments allowed him to survive the fall and the loss of his left arm during his final mission as a Howling Commando. He ended up in Zola's clutches once again, who was likely already working for HYDRA within S.H.I.E.L.D. due to his recruitment through Project Paperclip.
The procedure has already started.
The Winter Soldier then spent the next 70 years being brainwashed and tortured. His memory was periodically wiped and obedience was programmed into his mind with a series of code words to activate him. He was sent to carry out numerous assassinations for HYDRA, being kept in cryostasis between missions. It's obvious that HYDRA had put a lot of effort into keeping Bucky under their control. They wiped his memory in the short time between the attempt on Nick Fury's life and the fight on the bridge, and again before he's sent to stop Cap on the helicarrier. The saddest part is Bucky's reaction to hearing he has to endure another memory wipe. You can see the fear written all over his face, but he doesn't try to fight it. He's been conditioned not to resist HYDRA's orders in their efforts to strip him of free will.
Mission report now.
Despite 7 decades of being HYDRA's puppet, it all begins to unravel when Steve Rogers simply calls him by his childhood nickname.
Bucky? Who the hell is Bucky?
Previously cold and calculated, you can see the cracks starting to form in the Winter Soldier's control. He freezes, clearly struggling to process his own thoughts as memories begin to come back to the surface. Alexander Pierce has Bucky's mind wiped before sending him back into the field for his final confrontation with Captain America. But Steve goes all out to save his best friend. He steals his original World War II uniform from a museum, hoping it will jog Bucky's memories. Steve spends their entire fight trying to remind Bucky who he really is. He even stops fighting back as soon as he's sure that HYDRA's plan has been stopped and the world is no longer in danger.
I'm not gonna fight you.
Angry, confused, and afraid, the Winter Soldier tries to deny everything Steve has told him and frantically tries to carry out his orders to eliminate Captain America. He at last breaks when Steve tells him,
"'Cause I'm with you to the end of the line."
Repeating what Bucky once said to Steve all those years ago after his mother's funeral. Horror and realization wash over Bucky's face as he finally sees the truth. He was about to kill his best friend. Defying his order, Bucky saves Steve from the Potomac River after the helicarrier crash, dragging him safely to shore and leaving without saying a word. He goes into hiding, living in Romania and staying under the radar. According to Sebastian Stan, Bucky's backpack in Captain America Civil War is full of notebooks. He writes down all of his memories as they come back to him out of fear that he may forget them again. Bucky now deals with an intense amount of guilt over his actions as the Winter Soldier. Although he was not in control of his own mind, he feels grief and shame for all the lives that he's taken. He struggles with his sense of worth. Even when Steve insists that he didn't have a choice, Bucky replies,
But I did it.
Not only did he take the lives of innocents such as Mr. Nakajima's son, but even people he knew like Howard Stark. Howard worked closely with Captain America and the Howling Commandos during World War II. While never explicitly stated, we can gather from Howard's search for Cap's crashed plane and Tony Stark mentioning that his father spoke very highly of Steve, that he formed a personal connection with Cap and the Commandos. Tragically, Howard still recognized Bucky, his last words being a bewildered,
Sergeant Barnes.
The emotional toll of being forced to kill an old friend weighs heavily on Bucky, made all the worse by Tony Stark's anger and blame. Justified as Tony's feelings may be, Bucky was not the one in control and never would have chosen to kill Howard and Maria Stark of his own free will.
I can't trust my own mind.
Perhaps even worse than his guilt is Bucky's very real fear that he could be turned into a mindless weapon once again. Captain America: Civil War revealed that Bucky could be activated as the Winter Soldier with a series of code words. While this control doesn't seem to have as strong a hold over him without his memory being regularly wiped, it still prevents a huge danger. Feeling he can't trust his own mind, Bucky finds his salvation in Wakanda. While the movies leave off with Bucky going into cryostasis and pick back up again with him in fighting shape for Infinity War, what they skip over is the actual process of his recovery. To find those answers, we have to turn to Infinity War: Prelude, a tie-in comic that acts as a prequel to the movie. Putting Bucky into cryostasis was Shuri's idea, it turns out. T'Challa's sister came up with a possible solution for Bucky's brainwashing that required him to enter cryostasis so she could create a map of his mind. From there, she could selectively remove the programming that allows Bucky to be controlled with the trigger words. The process didn't come without risk, however. There was a chance Shuri could accidentally reboot Bucky's brain and strip away more than HYDRA's corruption. Knowing this, Bucky still agreed to the procedure and voluntarily allowed himself to be placed in cryostasis, for what he hoped would be the last time. In his mind, eliminating the possibility that he could be used as a weapon against innocent people was worth the risk of losing his entire identity. Luckily, thanks in no small part to Shuri's genius, it worked. In episode 4 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we see Bucky working with Ayo, one of the Dora Milaje. As a member of such an elite group of warriors, there was minimal risk to anyone's safety if Bucky's programming triggered. When Ayo recites the Winter Soldier's trigger words and Bucky remains in control, he is overcome with emotion, crying tears of joy and relief. Bucky then spends the next year enjoying some peace and calm in Wakanda, working as a farmer and gaining the nickname White Wolf from the locals. Despite everything he's been through, when T'Challa comes to him with a new vibranium arm, Bucky doesn't hesitate to join the fight to defend Earth in Avengers: Infinity War.
Where's the fight?
His recovery continues after the events of Avengers: Endgame, when he returns in the blip. He attends therapy sessions as a condition of the US government's pardoning of his crimes, and works on making amends for everything HYDRA forced him to do. He still struggles with his trauma, suffering symptoms of PTSD, but he's certainly in a much better place than he used to be. Despite Bucky's dark past, his true nature as a loyal, dedicated friend and selfless hero have shown through. Bucky's hiding place in Civil War was likely chosen because Sebastian Stan himself was born in Romania and speaks the language. He moved to Vienna shortly before the collapse of the Soviet Union, later coming to America and pursuing a career in acting.